Here's the deal. You think you're going to break free from the cycle of betrayal and abuse, but you can't. Not with the mindset you've got right now. Let me explain why. The other day, I stumbled upon a comment on my last video, the one where we talked about forgiveness, about letting go of the anger that poisons you from the inside. Stacie wrote this raw, painfully honest message. This was a good one, and I knew all of this, but it doesn't work perfectly because of the massive trauma from trusting the wrong people. Then trying to fix what they broke didn't work. It only made things worse. I'm on a really destructive pendulum that won't let me go. It needs to swing the other way. Also, a lot of evil people create chaos on purpose, like malignant psychopathic narcissists. Then there's the just plain stupid idiots that think they can do no wrong. Once they target you, there's no end to the abuse. She ended by saying she's stuck in hell and that I'd helped her more than any therapist she's seen. Stacie, this one's for you. You're not alone, but here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't just decide to break free. Not until you change everything you think you know about why this keeps happening. You've been betrayed, lied to, maybe even abused, and now you're caught on this pendulum, swinging between moments of hope that things will get better and crashing into despair when they don't. It's maddening. And worse, it feels like it's never going to stop. That pendulum, it's a vicious cycle, trauma keeping you locked in a pattern unable to escape. Every time you trust again, it feels like you're setting yourself up for another fall, another round of pain. But here's the twist. You can't break free because you're not looking at the problem the right way. You think it's personal, that the people who hurt you chose you as a target, that they saw something in you to exploit. That's not what's happening. They didn't pick you because of who you are. They picked you because of what they lack. The truth is, no one is targeting you personally. You're not their prey because of something wrong with you. And when you understand that, you'll finally stop swinging. Here's where most people get stuck. They believe that toxic, manipulative people are acting against them on purpose, that they're out to get them. But humans are way more complicated than that. People like narcissists, manipulators, and abusers don't see you when they hurt you. They see their own pain, their own emptiness, and they're lashing out because they don't know how else to deal with it. It's not personal. It's never been personal. They're not targeting you because you deserve it, because you're weak, or because you're an easy mark. They're doing it because they're broken, and they can't face their own cracks. So they turn outward, making others pay for the damage they carry inside. You just happen to be there. And that's a hard truth to swallow, but it's crucial if you ever want to stop the cycle. People are doing the best they can, even if that best is absolute garbage. Once you get this, you start to see the bigger picture. Their behavior? It says everything about them and nothing about you. But here's the kicker. Holding on to the idea that these people could have done better, that they should have done better, is what's killing you inside. You think that if they just cared enough, they would have treated you differently. That's why you're angry. That's why you can't let go. But that anger, that's what's keeping you sick, both mentally and physically. I've seen it play out in so many ways in your world. Resentment turns into stress, and stress turns into illness. Your body carries the weight of your unresolved emotions. Your mind becomes a prison where you replay every betrayal, every wound, every failure. And it's a vicious loop. But there's a way out. By recognizing that people act out of their own limitations, you can start to let go of the idea that they could have chosen differently. Once you see that, the bitterness starts to fade. You stop expecting them to fix what they've broken. And that, my friend, is when real healing can begin. Here's where most of you are still holding out for change, waiting for someone else to fix the mess they created in your life. But let me tell you something, you're not powerless. In fact, the way you regain power is by flipping the script. You know how in the outside world, power comes first, then responsibility? Well, inside you, it works the other way around. The second you take responsibility for your own emotions, you become powerful. You stop being a victim, even if horrible things happen to you. Now, I'm not saying you have to take responsibility for what someone did to you. No one deserves abuse. But the part you can own, your reactions, your healing. Once you decide to take responsibility for what happens inside of you, that's when you take the reins. It's a paradox, I know, but that's how inner power works. You get strong by choosing how to respond, even when the world outside is falling apart. And when you realize that, the pendulum stops swinging. You're in control now. It sounds almost unfair, doesn't it? This idea that your power comes from taking responsibility for emotions that feel so out of your control. But that's where people get it wrong. The moment you start taking ownership of your reactions, you shift the dynamic. You stop being the victim of what someone did to you and start becoming the architect of how you move forward. Sure, they hurt you. Sure, they took advantage of your vulnerability. But the longer you sit in that hurt, waiting for the world to fix it, the longer you stay stuck. You can't change them. You can't control how others behave. And honestly, it's not your job to. But what you can control is how much real estate they take up in your mind. You stop letting them run your life when you take full responsibility for your inner world. When you do that, you're not waiting for apologies or explanations anymore. You're not sitting there hoping they'll magically become better people. You're too busy becoming the person who doesn't need that validation. And that's real power. Now let's get into something that trips most people up: boundaries. Everybody talks about setting them, but no one tells you how to do it in a way that doesn't feel like a constant battle. Here's the truth: boundaries aren't complicated, but they can be hard if you're not asking yourself the right question. And that question? It's simple. Does this feel respectful? That's it. No elaborate rules. No drawn-out negotiations. If someone's behavior doesn't feel respectful, that's your signal to draw a line. Don't make excuses for them. Don't try to explain away their behavior. Don't get stuck in a cycle of, well, they didn't mean it like that. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. It doesn't matter. If it feels disrespectful, you've got all the information you need. That's the key to boundaries. It's not about controlling others. It's about protecting your emotional space. They can act however they want, but the moment you let that disrespect slide, that's on you. And once you own that, you take your power back. You're no longer a passive participant in your own life. Let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear. If you tolerate disrespect, it's your fault. Yeah, I said it. It stings, doesn't it? But that's the thing about boundaries. they aren't about changing other people's behavior. They're about you deciding what you will and won't tolerate. If someone disrespects you, that's on them. But if you stick around and let it keep happening, that's on you. And I'm not saying that to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because it's the most empowering realization you'll ever have. The moment you see that you're the one who allows disrespect to continue is the moment you can stop it. This isn't about blaming yourself for other people's actions. It's about taking responsibility for your own well-being. You have the right to walk away, to say no, to set a line in the sand and not let anyone cross it. And once you do that, the game changes. You stop waiting for others to treat you well, and you start demanding it, not with words, but with your actions. You walk away from what doesn't serve you. Period. Why is it so hard for some people to set boundaries? It's because they don't believe they deserve better. That's the core of it. You tolerate low-quality relationships, toxic behavior, and disrespect because deep down, you don't see yourself as worthy of more. That's what happens when you lack self-love. And if we're being real, most of the time, that lack of self-love comes from the way you were treated in your first decade of life. Think back. Were you made to feel valuable? Were you loved unconditionally? Did your parents or caretakers make you believe that your thoughts, feelings, and existence mattered? If not, you grew up with a deficit, a hole inside you where self-worth should have been. And that's not your fault. It's not even your parents' fault, necessarily. They did the best they could with what they had. But when you grow up lacking that fundamental sense of worth, you become vulnerable. You accept the love you think you deserve, and for a lot of people, that means settling for scraps when they should be demanding a feast. Self-love is the foundation of every boundary you set. Here's where things get messy and real. The reason you don't feel valuable, the reason you're stuck tolerating relationships that chip away at you bit by bit, is because of how you were made to feel in those early years. It's not something you did wrong. It's just that as a child, you were emotionally malnourished. Think of it like being deficient in vitamins. You didn't get enough love, enough validation, enough recognition that you mattered. And now you're undernourished emotionally. You've spent your life trying to fill that void. But here's the hard truth. No one else can fill it for you. No partner, no friend, no amount of external validation is going to be enough. The only way to heal that emotional malnutrition is by learning to love yourself from the inside out. You have to do for yourself what others failed to do for you. Recognize your worth. Until you do that, you'll always be searching, always settling for less than you deserve, because you won't believe you're worth more. But once you start cultivating that self-love, everything changes. Boundaries become easier. Toxic people fall away. And most importantly, you stop looking for love outside yourself because you finally found it within. So how do you fix it? How do you regain that sense of self-worth and love that was missing for so long? Here's the thing. Self-love isn't something you can get from the outside. Not from another person, not from a relationship, not from someone telling you you're amazing. If you depend on those external sources, you're setting yourself up for a life of addiction, addicted to other people filling the hole that should have been filled by you. True self-love has to come from within. And to get there, you've got to go back. Back to the younger version of you, the child who didn't get the love they needed, the kid who didn't ask to be hurt, ignored, or neglected. Look at that child. Picture them. Can you feel compassion for that little human who didn't know any better, who didn't deserve any of what they went through? That's where your self-love begins, with empathy for yourself. You reconnect with that child, and from there, something magical happens. You start to fill the gaps, not with anyone else's love, but with your own. You give that child what they needed all along: tenderness, validation, and acceptance. Once you feel empathy for yourself, true empathy, not pity or sadness, self-love starts to flow. You start to realize that you've always been deserving of love, respect, and care. And that's where the real healing begins. From that empathy comes love, and from that love come boundaries. It becomes second nature. You won't even have to think twice about it. When you love yourself, you won't tolerate disrespect because it won't align with the way you see yourself. People who try to manipulate you, people who want to take advantage of your kindness, they won't stand a chance. You won't need to scream your boundaries from the rooftops or make grand declarations of self-worth. Your actions will speak for themselves. You'll walk away from situations that don't honor you. You'll stop giving time and energy to people who don't respect you, and the ones who used to prey on your vulnerability. They'll be left out in the cold because you've built a fortress around your heart, one made of love, not fear. And let's be clear, this isn't about becoming some impenetrable wall. It's not about cutting off the world or living in fear of getting hurt again. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you're no longer afraid of walking away when things don't feel right. The people who are meant to be in your life, the ones who truly respect and care for you, will understand your boundaries and honor them. They won't see your self-love as a threat. They'll see it as a sign of strength, and they'll want to be part of that energy. But the ones who thrive on chaos, the ones who try to pull you back into the cycle of abuse, manipulation, and disrespect, they'll fall away because your boundaries will be too strong, too clear. And that's when you know you've broken the cycle, not because they've changed, but because you have. So where does this leave you? Once you've built your self-love from the ground up, once you've set those boundaries and let toxic people fall away, you start to move forward. Healing isn't a one-and-done event. It's a journey, sometimes a long one. There will be moments when you're tempted to fall back into old patterns. There will be days when you question if you're really worthy of the love and respect you demand. But with each boundary you set, with each time you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you'll be rebuilding your sense of worth, brick by brick. And here's the beauty of it. Once you get good at it, once you start living in alignment with your self-respect, you'll realize that the cycle of betrayal and abuse doesn't hold power over you anymore. You've broken free, not because the world changed, but because you did. And from that place of strength, you'll be unstoppable. You'll never settle for less again. So here we are. You're not stuck in that cycle anymore. Not if you don't want to be. The pendulum stops swinging when you decide it's time to take control, when you stop waiting for others to change and start reclaiming your power from within. It's a process, sure, but it's one worth every step. From self-love to boundaries, from empathy to empowerment, the journey is yours to take. Stacie, this message is for you and for everyone who's been caught in that same destructive loop. You can break free. You're not doomed to stay there forever. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to Stacie for her message that inspired this deep dive. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your own boundaries, your own journey toward self-love. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. We're all in this together, learning, growing, healing. And hey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Let's keep building this community of strength and resilience, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you deserve love and respect, not from others, but from yourself.